ang gulo ng Pilipinas. Chances are we've recently heard someone, or maybe even ourselves, say that out loud. We've had political turbulence before, but I think we are flying through a really rough patch now. The president, whose bloodline is marked by corruption on an Imeldific scale, has declared war on the corrupt. Mayors are accusing congressmen of complicity, and congressmen are entrapping district engineers. Politicians have also taken aim at journalists, and unfortunately, dubious practices and blurring of lines have not helped. The conflict with China over the West Philippine Sea has moved to a more dangerous phase, and looming behind it all, the Marcoses and the Dutertes remain locked in a do-or-die struggle. I get the sense that events may be spinning out of control. Is anyone in charge? And can we expect even more chaos? Hi, I'm John Neri, and you are in the Public Square. When I am uncertain or in doubt, I turn to longtime colleagues in media who make the most sense to me. Today, I am joined on Zoom by the indispensable journalist Inday Espina Varona, and in the studio by human rights advocate and former New York Times reporter Kaloy Conde. Welcome back, Inday and Kaloy, and thank you yet again for joining us in the Public Square.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, John. Pareho sa'yo, gulong-gulo rin kami.
Let me start. So, Inday first and then Kaloy. Do you share the same sense of unease? Like, there's political turmoil that may be threatening to spin out of control? Inday?
Yes, and also, there's something about the social media messages that are coming out from everyone, including some of our friends then, that give me a niggling, rising concern. It looks like people are falling, maybe inadvertently, maybe consciously, into the trap of these warring camps, manipulating public anger and all that. And we've seen this before, but we're seeing it again, and the stakes are higher for both these dynasties. And ang nasa isip ko rin naman, hindi pa tayo, the audience, the non-partisan, or even those who ought to know better, hindi pa tayo natututo sa pagmanipula ng komunikasyon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kaloy?
Yeah, it's quite dizzying, to be honest. It's like you feel like everything's flying in different directions. And, sabi ko nga, the lack of clarity on a lot of these issues makes it really, makes it very likely for the public to just conjure conspiracy theories, a lot of speculation. And it's not good. But, a part of me thinks that this could be organized chaos, or there must be some grand plan at play here. I don't know. We don't know. So I myself is engaging in that speculation now. Yeah.
So it's not drift, right? I mean, parang we all sense there are forces moving, right? There are movements afoot, parang ganon. Kaloy first and then Inday.
It's not. It doesn't look like it's drift, like directionless kind of chaos. I don't think it's that. It's just like different actors trying to do their things separately. I don't know to what end. Certainly from my perspective as a human rights advocate, I think, for instance, the removal of PNP Chief Torre, I look at that from a human rights perspective, and I can certainly see some possible impact of that on human rights. But I'm sure other observers as well will have a different take on that. Kasi nga, hindi malinaw yung kung ano itong nangyayari.
Yeah. Inday, are we being manipulated?
Yeah, I think so. And both camps, I think Rappler and PCIJ have come out with in-depth and very, very clear reportage on how both the Marcoses and the Dutertes have actually been squeezing, everything they can from social media. No, andyan yung even ChatGPT, OpenAI has already flagged the Marcoses. And of course, Sina Regine Cabato came out recently for PCIJ with an in-depth on how this hybrid AI troll machinery of the Dutertes are revving up again. And ako ang tingin ko is, yes, because I think hindi lang to 2028 na eh. I think parang para sa dalawang kampo, kung 2028 lang, hindi na sapat para sa kanila to preserve the interest. I think both camps are looking at the long term, and that's really bad for all of us.
I think there are some people who will also assert that maybe there's nobody in the cockpit. ang gusto ko itanong is Marcos Jr. Also the target of manipulation? Ano sa tingin niyo?
I don't think that's off the mark in many ways. I mean, we've seen evidence of how much the opposition, the Duterte opposition, can really create damage against the Marcoses and against all the other actors here. So I think that's a fair, reasonable thing to think. It's just that, yun nga, right now, parang iba yung gumagalaw.
Yeah.
And also, in the process, tama naman yung sinabi ni Inday na hindi lang ito. Ako, yung initial reaction ko was, oh, this is probably 2028. You know,
okay.
I mean, it's not too late to prepare, too early to prepare for 2028. And certainly, I think now that Inday mentioned it, it's not too late to prepare for the next 2034. I think so. This could be, this gives all the meaning. This gives new, not new, but a kind of a different meaning to the words state of play, because I think we're being played here.
Inday?
Well, I don't know what you mean by manipulation exactly. Marcos has shown himself to be canny at times, no? But sometimes talaga parang nasaan ba ito, no? Like this story na lang thing.
Yes,
no?
yes.
Nobody's indispensable. If he did wrong, then he did wrong, right? But the problem is like the way they did it. Sabi nga ni Kaloy, when pag kulang ang informasyon, then a vacuum is created.
Yeah.
And this Kurt one page, one paragraph from the nirelease na Bersamin, and followed by John Vic, who was also equally unclear in many points. No? Ang dyan is, dapat ang leaders ng bansa nakakaintindi rin na while accountability is very important and nobody should be beyond that, sila rin accountable on how they communicate their moves to the public. Dahil ang kanilang principal, ang public, hindi Tutore, hindi sino man, ang publiko. Ipaunawa nila sa publiko, ano ba, bakit? Saan siya nagkamali? Bakit? Ano ba yung kanyang violate, if anything? Hindi nagko-contradict yung mga messages din nila. So, lalong gumugulo.
Yeah.
Pero tingin ko, parang, lang ito si Torre, parang incidental lang siya dito sa lahat ng ito. Kasi, because one can look at Torre as kind of a disruptor in many ways. I mean, the way he effected the arrest of Quiboloy and Duterte, and then later yung boxing match nila ni Baste. I mean, all of that really played to the crowd. And, but I think ibang parang tingin ko hindi pa yun yung I mean, again, mag-engage tayo sa speculation, but I don't think that's part of the reason na ginawa sa kanya ito ngayon. No? Pero I think isang context na sana huwag natin makalimutan is that this is all happening when all of other things that really egregious, like the DPWH scams and all of these things that have been brought up by the Diskaya interviews with the media are really, I mean, people may want to, na mag-disappear yung mga yan. And who knows? This could be, part of that. I don't know. We don't know. Yun nga problema eh.
I will get back to that point that you just raised. No, I will challenge the idea that I still don't know, no, but I will challenge the idea that maybe this is incidental. It might be emblematic of what's happening. But I want to go back to a point that Inday raised about the way this was communicated. We're talking about the Nick Torre sacking, right? In fact, it was Inday who also pointed out in a post that John Vic called for a press conference and essentially pass the burden of explaining to the president. Di ba? Parang gano'n eh. Parang, well, the president has his reasons. He wants a new direction. But wala na. Meaning to say, we'll have to ask Marcos Jr. himself.
Yeah.
Di ba? Parang gano'n. So parang, yun nga yung point. You also raised this earlier na in an information vacuum, ang daming mga speculation. Pero hindi lang vacuum eh. May mga pumapasok na organize this information campaign. So, mahirap talaga. Di ba? We're reminded that the primary purpose of disinformation campaigns is not to convince you that black is white or white is black, no? It's to convince us, is to confuse us.
Yeah.
When we can no longer tell black from white.
Yeah.
Parang gano'n, di ba? Ganun. So ngayon, parang we're in that middle eh, di ba?
It's combobulated.
Anyway, so babalik ako dun sa the point that you raised. What if itong nangyari kay Nick Torre, emblematic, no?
Yeah.
Ng away ng mga political factions.
Oh, yeah.
So even within the Marcos camp. So obviously, John Wick is part of a very powerful dynasty. He's one of two brothers serving in the cabinet. Na lumalabas kabangga nga niya si Nick Torre, di ba? Okay. So parang ganyan, no? But is it possible that what happened here was, this is the way the country is run?
Yeah. Well, you can probably argue that yung sinight mo na yan, baka nga to some degree the president is not in control. If John Vic Remulla is able to get away with this and do it in such a way na parang yung pinapasa lang kay Marcos, it's almost like parang walang thought, parang walang thought lumalabas, baka may problema sa leadership. But and this is why it's so this is why to me, from a human rights perspective, this is so frustrating because kahit naman hindi pa ganun ka specific, detalyado o di kaya malinaw yung gustong gawin ni PNP Chief Torre nung maupo siya in terms of improving the police, improving the human rights record and all of that. At least he's the one who has said the right things and set in motion what he wanted to happen. So which is a far cry from what his predecessors had done. The fact alone that he was the only chief PNP who sought an audience with the CHR was something from our perspective. So kumbaga, he was potentially he was the right man for the job. Now maybe wrong timing lang talaga ang lahat ng ito para sa kanya. So mas na-frustrate ako doon sa part na yun eh.
Ang tanong ko kay Inday, again, based on what we've already discussed is, whatever the reason was for removing him, parang hindi, this is not in what we would assume to be the best interests of Marcos Jr. himself. No? So, meron na siyang nahanap na someone he can depend on to arrest someone like Kibuloy in a very hostile area, or to arrest someone as popular as Duterte. No? Parang gano'n, no? So, I think Regine Cabato also pointed this out, no? Pinagpestahan ngayon ng mga DDS, no? Look what happened, parang ganyan. You can never. It plays into their argument, di ba? You can never trust the Marcoses. They will always betray you. So look at
the optic is really bad.
Di ba? Or kung meron nga man siyang ginawang mali yung pagka-communicate. Di ba? So dito I guess Inday yung point ko na baka naman is he really that weak or is he being manipulated si Marcos?
Siguro hindi lang. I'd go beyond is he being manipulated. Kasi, since the SONA at itong papunta sa DWH, napapansin ko mukhang deliberate na from one PR stand to another sila.
Okay.
Tingnan natin itong DPWH. Bakit una nakalimit lang daw kunwari sa 2022 to 2025, kakaganun ka.
Okay.
Pero alam mo, magbabacktrack rin yan.
Yes.
And then, hindi mo maintindihan na biglang naglabasan ng mga magagalit siya, sila yung NEP nila yan, galing din sa kanila yan.
That's right.
Sila yung hepe ng DPWH executive. Si Bunowa, nasa tabi niya, parang, ano ba itong gusto palibas? Tapos, kasi ang optics niyan is nagpabida siya sa SONA, di ba? Na parang binakbakan niya yung mga korap, pati na, kaya natawa tayo dahil nagpalakpakan nito mga congressman na alam naman natin, na swimming in park and all that, no? And then here they go. And then here comes ito na why are all these mayors claiming multi-billion pesos worth of projects that are ghost projects that were never passed to them? Bakit nag-aaway sila ng Congress? Parang natatabunan ang fact that there is a law that says noon pa kailangan mag-coordinate ang national at ang lokal. No?
That's right.
Parang niloloko lang yung taong bayan kasi paikot-ikot lang sila pagwapo. All sides of that. So, nasa atin naman, nahuhulog na naman tayo kasi mag-cheer tayo for one, cheerleader for this, cheerleader for that. Pero sila lahat, eventually, they will probably come together and again divide the spoils among themselves.
O nga, my initial reaction when I heard him say, mahiya naman kayo, no? And all that was, parang he was triangulating, no? Between himself, the public and the rest of the political class. Parang, how do you think, so Inday first and then Kaloy, how do you think this investigation into the flood control corruption, ano? How do you think that will resolve? Parang, I think last week may sinabi siya na wala akong alam na senador na sangkot. So parang, okay, that's already exoneration for his allies. Paano kaya to?
If we're going to go beyond optics, if we're going to go beyond the short term, I'm going to quote Chelo Magno and then Social Watch Philippines and the other advocacy groups. Walang patutunguhan yan hanggat ang advocacy groups and civil society hindi mo mapasok sa budget-making process.
Okay.
No? Ayaw nila eh. Humihingi matagal na ayaw nila, observer lang. So after the fact, naghahabol lang sila. When itong groups na to would be able to blow the whistle before something happens. Kasi systemic naman yan eh. The reason why corruption is so much is because ang daming weakness sa systems. No? Nag-Supreme Court unanimous decision nga sa PDAP, every administration naman finds a new creative way of inserting forth. Because sila lang talaga ang governance. Everybody chases only after once corruption sets in already. So I think really we need to focus on the system and we need to bring third parties into it and also into this investigation. It cannot just be either the executive or either Congress. There should be a very strong independent third party na involved in sa investigation.
Kaloy, do you think Marcos Jr. will just end up, pointing the blame at a few district engineers?
Actually, natatawa ako dyan because how did it come to this that we are now pinning our hopes on the son of the worst thief, the worst president we've ever had, to clean up the mess that his father helped create? I don't know what happened, to be honest. I don't know what happened between 2022 and now that suddenly made us think, or a lot of people think, that Mr. Marcos may just be the guy to fix what's rotten in this country. I mean, that taxes my credulity, to be honest. I don't think he has shown kind of a really definitive demonstration of that. Even to do that, what I suspect is happening is that a lot of this is optic, to be sure, making sure that the Marcos legacy continues. But also, I don't think he and his family are going to let go of whatever riches they've managed to amass all those decades. And I don't think that's going to change just because he became president. So I would caution some some skepticism to that. But I'm ready to be blown away by reforms. But
it is very difficult to put sitting congressmen and senators in jail. No, we've only had a few examples, right? I'm not sure if that's part of the set of expectations of the public. No, na dapat ganito mangyari. But I think, and to give credit where credit is due, and it was Inday who actually pointed this out earlier on another occasion, no, Inday noticed that pag medyo crisis situation, like may baha and so on, medyo iba si Marcos Jr. Parang he knows what he's doing, medyo gana. So inisip ko na part of the reason why umabot tayo sa ganito because of the terrible floods, right?
Yeah.
That took place over like a week and a half. And this came a year after siya mismo was trumpeting, all these flood control projects, di ba? And ngayon bumawi siya, sabi niya ghost projects pala to, wala pa lang nangyari, parang gano'n. So there is this genuine sense of crisis, I think, na nakuha niya, no? So kaya nagkaroon ng ganito.
No, the question is whether he's going to follow through.
That's right, yes. So
it's a different thing. I mean, Bunoan is still there. And even people are now speculating, baka si Tory ilagay nila sa DPWH to get rid of all this kalokohan there. I don't know.
Actually, John, ipapari ko, sinabi ni Kaloy, will he follow through? Yan din ang point ko eh. He has so many unfinished business. He has so many things left hanging. He jumps from one thing to another. Okay, pogo, lahat. Ngayon, nakikita mo, merong strain din sa social media messaging that comes out like, ang dami-daming krimen na ngayon, ang dami-daming, maakyat na. May drug lord killing uli, may ganon. After sila nagpogo, after sila nag-quadcom na ang lakas-lakas doon sa link ng Duterte, ang tanong lang simple, nasaan na yung lahat ng mga police officials doon na tinawag sa quadcom? They're out there. They're all people in Duterte. They're all people with arms. They're all people who were involved in savage killings and other forms of brutality. Where are they now? Hindi ko alam kung ano ba to, okay lang kayo kung sinong maging kaibigan eventually, or what happened to the money laundering of Garma's ex-partner who was involved in a diplomatic position in Washington D.C. Yung mga ganon. The murder of the PCO official executive was linked to money laundering. Nakatakot ang salapi. Nasaan na? I mean, wala siyang trajectory na tuloy-tuloy, alam mo? So parang hindi mo alam kung saan pupunta.
If I may, John, this is why, those are excellent points there. This is why I think this administration is what I call a low-hanging fruit administration. They pick the lowest hanging fruits and package these as, kind of some form of achievements. I mean, in itself, it's not wrong. I mean, there certainly are low-hanging fruits in the government that needs to be picked. We talk about human rights, we could talk about the criminal justice system, the judiciary. Certainly, the other Remulla has done that, Crispin, in terms of, for instance, releasing a lot of these detainees who have been languishing in detention for God knows how long, right? And that's a low-hanging fruit. Although, he stopped short of fixing what the problem is in pretrial detention, in the problem of our detention facilities. And I think this is also part of that. Itong sa nangyayari sa infrastructure and public works issues. Just parading, for instance, going to a flooded area and declaring there that, these are, we need to fix all of this. I mean, it's optics. It's obviously a lot of it is propaganda, but also I think my view is that it's a signal to his subalterns, to his people that you should be able to do some things that give a semblance of action, low-hanging fruits. But I don't know whether this administration is really intent or serious in going all out against corruption at the DPWH. I don't know. I hold my breath on that one. I don't hold my breath on that one.
Yeah. So low-hanging fruits on the one side, and on the other, parang this whole culture of, ano ba tawag nito? Parang weapons of mass distraction.
Distraction,
Now
yes.
we're all being distracted. No? Balik tayo dito. So, of course, we are journalists or once again will be
Hellraisers.
So we do have a role to play, no, sa information ecosystem. Pero yung pagdating kasi sa mga corruption, I think this has been pointed out many times already. Parang ang hina ng sense of follow-up natin.
Yeah.
No? So I want to ask, okay, are we also being gamed? No? Yeah, okay, let's, may bagong skandalo. Let's, do all the work necessary. Pero we only have so much resources, right? I mean, how can we continue to cover other things? Parang ganun nga. So yung mga ang daming sinabi ni Hinday na, oo nga, no? Ito yung mga emphasis ni Marcos doon. Tapos parang, after Pogo, meron pa yatang mga unfinished business sa Pogo. Yeah. But he hasn't said anything about that. Parang ganun. So yun, yung ability, our lack of capacity to follow up on all these corruption scandals.
Well, partly, John, I think, is how free is the flow of information. Sa totoo lang.
Okay.
Andyan pa rin yung ayaw ibigay ang SALN sa maraming lugar, no? Andyan pa rin ang may mga COA reports na mahirap anin. The contracts, impossible to get contracts. The only reason why may mga malaking disclosures nung we were able to follow up sa Quadcom and here sa DPWH is sa totoo lang, galing sa gobyerno ang impormasyon.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we should ignore what the government gives just because it comes from the government. But the fact is, pag tayo ang naghabol ng ating on our own pace sa ating initiative, marami pa ring stumbling blocks. Hirap na hirap. Ang CHR mismo nagsabi, ayaw. Kanina lang ayaw yung mga police stations, ayaw magbigay.
Yeah.
Ayaw pa rin magbigay ng papeles dun sa EJK.
Yeah.
So marami pa rin. So partly, until all those barriers, are lifted, mahirap na mahirap ang trabaho natin. And the government will release information according to their interests.
To some degree, Jan, I agree na sinasabi mo na, are we being gamed here? I think, the issues that we're confronted with, corruption, a lot of these violations, iba yung pag-appreciate natin dyan We intense tsaka sustain yung ating interest sa mga yan for professional or whatever reasons. Ang publiko, I don't think they have that luxury to have a sustained interest in seeing these problems being resolved. Sa kanila, lalo na yung mga mahihirap, it's a day-to-day existence. So they probably don't care much about what will happen to an investigation as long as tomorrow we'll be able to pay for our bills and things like that. So, and I think the government, probably all governments know this. And so, mas madali mong i-distract palalo ang publiko, hindi lang sa social media and all the propaganda and all of that, but also because of their own conditions are not I would say good enough for this vigilance to happen or to even take root. It's distracted on so many levels.
Yeah. Part of the context, no? Out of which I asked that question about, are we being gamed? No? Because, was it last week when Marcos Jr. Asked, wala na bang investigative journalism dyan? Remember? When he was talking about the flood control projects. Parang, this is the President of the Philippines with a massive information infrastructure, legitimate information infrastructure at his command, no? Saying, bakit di niyo gawin yung trabaho? Parang passing on the buck.
Shifting the blame, yeah.
Di ba? Parang wala na bang investigative journalism dyan?
Patuloy siya ng PCIJ na sa katalbang report nila.
So parang yun inisip ko, parang, so, I don't know if people will, buy the assumption behind that question of his. Tapos parang, oo nga, dapat yung mga periodista o yung mga IJ yung mga gagawa nito.
John, they will. And it's not just the poor who will, by the way. The middle class, though, and even the educated class, those who know better, are falling for this.
Yeah.
Sila rin yung parang trumpo. Why? Ito lang nagulat ako last week lang. Two friends, very well-read friends, very connected in advocacy circles, started asking questions. Bakit hindi nyo ginagawa ang media nito? Why isn't the media reporting on this? Napatigil ako. Kasi I presume that kilala ko sila. Magbabasa,
Sure.
Sabi ko, what do you mean? No, you haven't been reporting on this. So, syempre, nalungkat ko, binigay ko, what do you mean? Ito, ang dami. Hindi nila napansin. Algorithms raw. Patay tayo dyan. Pag algorithms, if we fall back on the blame of algorithms, totoo yan. No? We know that. That's what gives profits to the social media giants. But once we start blaming algorithms, gusto sabihin yan, we created that problem partly. Because we can do something. We can go straight, araw-araw, tingnan nyo lang, pasadahan nyo lang ang news organizations. That means when we blame algorithm, nakatutok tayo sa kung anong dumadaan sa feed natin.
Yeah. But
so parang lundag.
Yeah. But this also raises an interesting point, Inday. Itong nangyayari nga ngayon sa media. Medyo tangential din siya, pero any effort, lalo na pag-sustained na effort to try to discredit the media, whether, accusing them of unethical practices or corruption, it goes a long way in terms of dismantling yung ng media in the eyes of the public, yung standing ng media in the eyes of the public. I mean, I'm not particularly referring to any outlet, but the media as a whole, as an institution, na dapat sana makasagot dun sa tanong nga ni Presidente Marcos. But I think that's yung tinatanong niyang yun. I mean, I wouldn't even say he was joking or tongue-in-cheek yung pagkasabi niya. But I don't think he's that stupid not to appreciate the implication he was saying. He was imparting when he said that. Kasi medyo serious nga yun, no? He's basically saying na investigative journalism in this country is kaput. So that's why this is all happening. So. But I think just on that point about the media, dito ngayon papasok dapat yung sustained effort ng hindi lang ng media but ng government to really educate the public about what the media's role in all of this. Kasi like itong mga nangyayaring about ethics, instead of hiding from it, dapat ang industry kino-confront niya yung mga issue na yun and talk about it.
But we do, no? I mean. But it's part of this larger context. So one is, it's a fragmented information ecosystem now, right? So you have some very well-educated, very well-read people who are not seeing what they ought to be seeing because, they are in...
The algorithm.
They are at the mercy of their own algorithms. That's one, no? But then also you have this long-running and not limited to the Philippines context na dinidemonize o undermine yung credibility ng media. No, it's part of this rightward trend, right? You wanna undermine the authority of a countervailing institution, no, like the media. Kaya yung nakakalungkot, yung what should be really straightforward indices like trust in media, napaka-complicated ngayon kasi may mga kasama dyan na, di ba, tina-target, I can't help but note that yung Iligan City Mayor's office, one of their quote-unquote counter arguments was to point to, kaya yung Rappler, ganyan yung trust rating, parang, no, that's di ba? Parang, yun yung, kaya nga, we're trying to push back against that simplified view of trust, di ba? Kasi nga, it's much more complicated.
I know. I think analog media should be revived. I think newspapers should be revived. to get rid of the algorithm aspect of this.
Tapos hindi rin nagkukulang yung mga different political operatives nung pumutok yung tungkol sa mga diskaya, so interviews by Julius Babaw and then Corina Sanchez. I am sure that part of the commentary that flooded medyo orchestrated din. I mean talagang may pagkukulang talaga yung dalawa, sabihin na natin. Pero generalizing that, or confusing the boundaries between content creation, or di ba? Talagang, again, it really helps undermine the credibility of the media. Yun yung masakit doon.
Yeah. But also, just on that one, I think dahil yung tutok sa mga diskaya ngayon in terms of the DPWH issues, sila yung tututukan, baka talagang ang papalabasin na lang sila lang yung ganyan. Sila yung pinakamayaman, so they must be they must have been the worst. So dapat sila yung gawin nating sacrificial lambs or what, and then everybody happy.
Inday, do you think we're looking at a Janet Napoles scenario where it was very clear at the start that she couldn't have done it without, the help of senators and congressmen, who were detained, right? But then some were mysteriously released and so on. So in the end, she's left holding the bag. Siya na lang and she won't be getting out, no? She's been convicted with some finality on some of the cases, no? Baka ganun na mangyari, whether it's the Discayas or not, whether it's the district engineer in Batangas or not. Parang in the end, baka doon ba ang hantungan nito, Inday?
Oo, kasi again, babalik ako sa they refuse to address the system that creates this corruption. They refuse to listen to people who will be able to help them untangle some of the kinks of this system. So hanggat ayaw nila dyan, kasi pinoprotektahan nila ang interest nila, and we're talking all sides, we're not talking Marcos, lahat sila, no? Patuloy na patuloy ito, paikot-ikot lang. So nasa atin lang talaga sa taong bayan, talaga bang, let's not allow them to drag us into sa manok dito, sa manok doon. Kailangan, we should also sustain our anger at corruption, and kailangan ang tingin natin sa kanila pareho, no? We shouldn't have our own sacred cows. Kailangan tutok lang na tutok, patuloy tayo ng patuloy to push, no, for reforms and for the opening, babalik pa rin ako, opening ng flow of information.
Back to how I started, and I heard you also shared my unease, parang ang gulo, hindi natin alam ang nangyari, are we being manipulated? Ang tanong ko ngayon sa inyo, Inday and Kaloy, it looks like that maybe this sense of unease is not shared by the political class or the powers that be, no? Kasi parang ang lumalabas, based on our own history, na nabanggit na nga natin, makakalimutan din to. There will be new scandals down the road that will serve to distract the public, that might, not just the public, but us ourselves, no? And that might drain our resources, no? And so on. So parang sa kanila, what political turbulence? We're in first class. Walang nangyari dito sa first class.
I think that's a good point. But also, I would like to add that mas lalo pang mas magulo ngayon ito, but to the benefit of the political class. Kasi nga, where before there were only two contending forces pagdating sa mga ganito, yung administration at yung opposition, or with the help of the. Ngayon, this is a three-way fight. Andyan yung Duterte, andyan yung Marcos, andyan yung the non-allied forces or what, no? So mas lalong magulo, yung mas lalong maraming madidistract, magugulumihanan, mas maraming reason ngayon yung publiko not to look closely. So and I think that's why I think they're confident in saying in thinking na kayo lang naman naguguluhan diyan, kayo lang naman ng kami, we're fine.
Well, of course they're fine, Chan Kaloy. Nakailang presidente ng binagsak and we still have the same political dynasties in power. Of course they're fine. They'll just divvy up power among themselves, para silang mga ama-iba, di ba? Gaganon sila, babalik sila. And I guess until that system is broken, kahit the gains that we get from targeting corruption, targeting injustice, will only be so much kasi they will stop before it actually gets at their doorstep. So.
I have so many more questions, no? But we're running long. Let me just ask one final question. So Inday first and then Kaloy. What are the potential flashpoints that you see? So we're talking about this sense of unease, ano? So parang ang dami nangyari. Mas skandalo dito, may sibakan doon, and so on. Obviously, the trial of Dutertes, that will be a flashpoint. What else do you see down the road that maybe we should look out for? Para hindi naman tayo magulat.
I think the impeachment, Sarah's impeachment, regardless of where it is in the Supreme Court right now, will remain a flashpoint, no matter how both Congress and the executive seem to want it to disappear. No? But nasa bagyo season na tayo hanggang sa dulo ng taon. It will take only one major disaster for everything to, tingin ko, to erupt into rage talaga. And the Marcoses, both the Marcoses and the Dutertes will be using that, to score points against each other, because I'm still sure that itong ano ni Marcos is eventually going to end up in some Duterte camps. Kasi itong mga nag-i-implement ng mga project na itong galing dito ng panahon ng Duterte. Meron ako nakikita eh.
You're saying that some of these investigations will lead back to the Duterte?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. 101%.
Okay. Sure.
Those investigations are going to lead back.
Okay. Thank you. Kaloy?
No, but also I think 2028, and depending on how the Marcos administration kind of gumawa ng hakbang para to ensure that they will have a good chance in 2028. That could be some flashpoints could erupt there. I mean, because I think kung halimbawa si Sara ang manalo sa 2028, I'm pretty sure na siya ang mananalo kung wala namang as things stand now. That's going to really hindi lang siya disrupt the status quo, but I think there will be hell to pay for a lot of people, and that's going to be really, really I think catastrophic for me. Ang tingin ko rin yung isang dito, pag na-sideline na ang Marcos administration leading to 2028, whatever steps the Marcos administration has taken to kind of maging ayusin yung nakuna niya kay Duterte. Wala, that's down the drain, and that's going to so tingin ko yung 2028 election, definitely the ICC trial, and God forbid may mangyari kay Mr. Duterte while in custody. Those are going to really create those flashpoints.
Plus the impeachment. Yeah, I've looked up to Inday and Kaloy since our Manila Times days. They belong to a small circle of journalists I listen to know not only what to think, but how to think. I would like to thank you both very much.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, John.
And that's it for us today. The next step for engaged citizens, as always, is to take a more active part in the democratic project, especially in the face of greater political turbulence. Please download the Rappler Communities app and join the chat room of your choice. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Rappler Plus. Thank you. This is John Neri. See you in the public square.